Chosen one, why does your chest feel heavy every morning when you wake up? Why does the mirror reflect eyes that carry a weight you can't name? Why at this stage of your life does it feel like you're drowning in shallow water? Stop scrolling. Stop everything. What you're experiencing isn't depression. It isn't loneliness. It isn't the natural decline of aging that the world wants you to accept. You are being spiritually prepared for the most significant moment of your entire existence, the 31st of August. Not just another date circled on your kitchen calendar. Not another day to endure until bedtime. This is a line drawn in the eternal realms, a final step that will either elevate you into divine purpose or leave you wondering what could have been. Have you felt it? That unexplainable pressure building in your spirit these past weeks. The way conversations feel hollow, how food tastes like cardboard, how even your favorite television shows can't distract you from the restless knowing that something monumental is approaching. That's not your imagination. That's heaven pressing pause on your ordinary life, because what's coming requires your complete attention. You didn't stumble upon this message while mindlessly scrolling through videos about recipes or grandchildren. The algorithm didn't randomly suggest this content. The Spirit of the living God intercepted your timeline, because the 31st of August has been marked in the books of eternity as your day of divine activation. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been told your season is over, that your best chapters are behind you, that wisdom comes with wrinkles but power fades with age. They lied to you. The truth? You haven't been aging, you've been marinating. Every tear, every betrayal, every sleepless night, wondering if God forgot your address, has been seasoning you for this moment when heaven finally says, now you're ready. Before we unlock what the 31st of August holds for you, I want to pause and honor every single soul who has supported this ministry through super thanks. Your generosity flows like oil on sacred ground. You're not just donating, you're sowing seeds of light that will reach the forgotten elderly, the overlooked seniors, the precious saints who feel invisible. Whether you give financially or simply give us your time and attention, know that your presence here matters deeply. If these words are already stirring something ancient in your soul, let that be your offering. But right now, if you sense this message piercing through decades of doubt and disappointment, I need you to do something prophetic. Type 999-inch the comments below. Not as superstition, but as spiritual declaration. Those 3 nines represent the completion of the old and the birth of the new. Your final step isn't coming, chosen one. It's here. Why have you been waking up at 3:17 a.m. for the past 3 weeks? Why does your spirit feel like it's carrying a freight train you never asked to pull? Why does every conversation with your children feel like you're speaking through thick glass? Because, chosen one, you are living in the final countdown to a divine appointment that was scheduled before your grandmother's grandmother drew breath. The 31st of August isn't random. God doesn't play dice with dates. When the Almighty marks a day on His eternal calendar, it's because something sacred is about to collide with something earthly. And that collision is you stepping into the reason you survived everything that should have destroyed you. Think about this. In all of biblical history, when God moved nations, when He shifted kingdoms, when He rewrote the destiny of His people, it always happened on specific dates. Passover wasn't just any spring evening. Exodus 12 tells us it was the 14th day of the first month when the angel of death passed over every doorpost marked with blood. Pentecost wasn't just another religious gathering. Acts 2 records that on the day of Pentecost, exactly 50 days after resurrection, the Holy Spirit fell like fire, and 3,000 souls were saved in a single afternoon. These weren't coincidences, they were divine appointments. Moments when heaven's calendar synchronized with Earth's timeline to birth the impossible. And the 31st of August? It's your Passover and your Pentecost wrapped into one explosive moment of spiritual breakthrough. But here's what's tearing at your soul right now. You've been carrying this unexplainable weight for months, maybe years. You wake up exhausted even after 8 hours of sleep. You look at your bank account and wonder how you're going to make it through another month on Social Security. You sit in your doctor's waiting room and feel like your body is betraying you one joint at a time. The enemy has been whispering the same lie in your ear every morning. Your best days are behind you. God's done using people like you. You should just accept that this is how it ends. But what if I told you that every single morning you've dragged yourself out of bed feeling defeated? You were actually in spiritual boot camp. What if every financial pressure was training you to trust God's provision? What if every health scare was teaching you that your strength comes from heaven, not from the flesh that's wearing down? You haven't been declining, dear one. You've been developing. The prophet Habakkuk understood divine timing when he declared in chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak, and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry." Your vision has been tarrying. Your breakthrough has been delayed. Your miracle has felt like it was lost in heaven's mail system. But tarrying isn't canceling. Delay isn't denial. God's been preparing you for a blessing so massive that if it had come any earlier, it would have crushed you under its weight. The 31st of August represents the closing of an old scroll and the opening of a new one in your life. Every tear you've cried in secret has been recorded. Every prayer you've whispered in desperation has been filed away. Every time you chose to get up when staying down would have been easier has been noted in heaven's ledger. And now the accounts are being balanced. The books are being opened. The harvest is being released. This is your spiritual final exam, chosen one. Not a test you can fail, but a graduation ceremony you've been preparing for through decades of faithful endurance. All that secret preparation, all those private battles you fought when no one was watching, all those moments when you stayed loyal to God even when He felt distant, they're about to become visible proof of His faithfulness. You know what they don't teach you in Sunday school? Sometimes God's greatest work happens in the margins of life. While everyone else is looking for burning bushes and parting seas, God is quietly working in doctors' offices and grocery store checkout lines and lonely kitchen tables, where 7 5-year-old saints cry out to Him at 2 a.m. Your margin has become your ministry. Your struggle has become your strength. Your pain has become your preparation. But here's what's about to shock everyone who counted you out, everyone who wrote you off as just another senior citizen waiting for heaven. The 31st of August marks the day when your hidden years become your healing years, when your invisible faithfulness becomes undeniable favor, when your quiet obedience becomes loud breakthrough. The same God who transformed Moses from a stuttering shepherd into the deliverer of nations is about to reveal what He's been building in you during all those years when it felt like nothing was happening. But here's the question that will determine everything. Are you ready to stop living like you're in the waiting room of destiny and start walking like you own the building? 73 years old and still asking God why. Still watching the mailbox for answers that never come. Still sitting in that same pew, 3rd row from the back, wondering if He even remembers your name. You know that feeling, don't you? The one that hits you at 3 a.m. when the house is too quiet and your heart is too loud. When you stare at the ceiling and whisper the same prayer you've been whispering for 40 years. When you wonder if your faith has been nothing more than beautiful delusion. They thought it broke you. They thought the divorce at 62 broke you. They thought burying your spouse broke you. They thought watching your children move 3 states away and call twice a year broke you. They thought the medical bills and the foreclosure notice and the Social Security checks that barely cover groceries broke you. They thought it ended you. They thought retirement meant irrelevance. They thought gray hair meant God was done using you. They thought your best sermons were preached, your best prayers were prayed, your best days were nothing but yellowed photographs in dusty albums. They thought it finished you. They thought the loneliness would consume you. They thought the silence from heaven meant abandonment. They thought your season of significance had passed like winter into forgotten ground. But heaven knew something they couldn't see. While others received their breakthrough in their 30s, you waited in the same desert. While your neighbor's children became doctors and lawyers and bought them houses, you struggled to keep the lights on. While your Sunday school classmates talked about grandchildren's graduations and European vacations, you sat silent, counting quarters for gas money. The desert. Do you know it well, that barren place between promise and fulfillment, where dreams go to die and faith goes to be tested? You've been wandering there longer than Moses wandered with Israel, longer than most humans could endure without losing their minds or their hope. But listen carefully to what Scripture reveals about desert seasons. Joseph didn't just serve time in Potiphar's house, he was being prepared for Pharaoh's palace. Genesis 39 tells us that the Lord was with Joseph even in prison, even when falsely accused, even when the cupbearer forgot him for 2 more years. The prison wasn't punishment, it was preparation for power. David didn't just hide in caves from King Saul's spears, he was being shaped into a king. 1 Samuel 22 shows us that in those caves, broken men gathered around him, men in debt, in distress, in desperation, and David became their captain. The caves weren't exile, they were executive training. Your desert hasn't been empty, chosen one. It's been full of character development that couldn't happen in comfort, full of faith refinement that required the fire of delay, full of spiritual muscle building that only comes from carrying weight that should have crushed you but somehow didn't. Why didn't it crush you? Why are you still here when others with easier lives gave up years ago? Why does your heart still beat with expectation when logic says surrender? Because you carry something precious, something rare, something that could only be forged in the furnace of patient endurance. The enemy knew it. That's why the attacks were so vicious. That's why the delays were so long. That's why the loneliness cut so deep. Hell doesn't waste ammunition on empty vessels. You've been targeted because you're loaded with destiny. Every sleepless night was strengthening your prayer life. Every financial struggle was teaching you to depend on heaven's economy. Every betrayal was developing your discernment. Every tear was watering seeds of compassion that will someday heal broken hearts you haven't even met yet. The struggle hasn't been visible to most people. They see you at church on Sunday, dressed nicely, smiling appropriately. They don't see Tuesday afternoons when you sit in your car in the grocery store parking lot, crying because the prices have gone up again and your income hasn't. They don't see Thursday nights when you lie awake, wondering if anyone would notice if you just didn't wake up tomorrow. But God sees. Psalm 56:8 says, He collects every tear in a bottle. Every single drop of pain has been catalogued, measured, and stored in heaven's treasury. And now, on the 31st of August, that investment comes due. But here's what you need to understand about divine timing. It doesn't follow Wall Street schedules or retirement planners' projections. Sarah was 90 when she birthed nations. Moses was 80 when he split seas. Caleb was 85 when he conquered mountains. Your age isn't your expiration date, it's your graduation date. The invisible struggle is about to become visible victory, but only if you can recognize that what felt like abandonment was actually appointment. What felt like delay was actually development. What felt like punishment was actually preparation for the most significant chapter of your entire existence. Can you feel it stirring now? That restless knowing that your season of obscurity is ending and your time of divine exposure is beginning. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. For decades, you've been looking in all the wrong places for the answer to your restlessness. You've been scanning the horizon for a miracle that would change your circumstances, a phone call with good news, a check in the mail, a relationship that would finally fill the void, a doctor's report that would ease your fears. But what if I told you that every external thing you've been praying for, hoping for, begging God to deliver, was never the real answer? What if the breakthrough you've been seeking outside yourself has been locked inside you all along? The final step is not external, it is internal. Think about this. Moses didn't need a different desert to lead Israel out of Egypt. He needed to become a different Moses. The burning bush didn't change Moses' location, it changed Moses' revelation. David didn't need a bigger slingshot to defeat Goliath. He needed to understand the giant killer that already lived within him. You see, dear one, you've been treating yourself like a victim of your circumstances when God has been preparing you to become the victor over them. Every disappointment, every closed door, every night you cried yourself to sleep, wasn't God punishing you, it was God positioning you. For what? For this moment when the spiritual lock inside your soul finally clicks into place. You became the key. Not through striving, not through perfection, but through surrender. Through every tear that carved humility into your heart. Through every betrayal that taught you to trust God alone. Through every financial struggle that proved His provision. Through every health scare that revealed His healing power. Romans 8:28 doesn't say some things work together for good. It says all things work together for good. To those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. Every single thing that tried to break you was actually building the key that would unlock your destiny. But here's what will shock you. The moment this internal shift happens, everything external has no choice but to respond. Not because you're demanding it, not because you're forcing it, but because spiritual law supersedes natural law every single time. When Jesus said in Matthew 6:33, "Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you," He wasn't talking about a reward system. He was revealing a spiritual principle. When the internal kingdom is established, the external world must realign itself to match. Right now, as you sit there listening to these words, can you feel it? That strange sensation in your chest. That's not anxiety, beloved. That's the sound of the lock turning. That's the moment when decades of preparation meet divine timing. You've been asking God to change your situation. But what if your situation was never the problem? What if your situation was the classroom and you just graduated with honors? The external circumstances that have frustrated you for years, the people who don't call, the opportunities that never came, the respect you never received, they're about to shift because you are no longer the same person who needed their validation. You've been transformed from someone who begs for breakthrough to someone who attracts it, from someone who chases favor to someone who radiates it, from someone who hopes for change to someone who creates it. Isaiah 43:19 declares, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it?" The new thing isn't happening around you, it's happening in you. And once it springs forth from within, the external world has no choice but to acknowledge what heaven has already established. This is why your prayers are about to be answered in ways that will leave you speechless. Not because God suddenly started listening, but because you finally became someone who could receive what He's always wanted to give. This is why doors that were locked for years are about to swing open. Not because the doors changed, but because you became the master key. This is why people who ignored you are about to seek your counsel. Not because they suddenly discovered your worth, but because the authority you carry now demands their attention. But here's the question that will determine everything. Are you ready to stop being a victim of your story and start being the author of it? Are you prepared to step into the identity that your trials have been carving out for 70, 80, 90 years? Because once this final internal step is complete, there's no going back to small thinking, small living, or small believing. You'll be operating from a frequency so high that mediocrity will feel like suffocation. You think 80 years old means finished? You believe that Medicare card in your wallet is heaven's retirement notice? Listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter every lie you've swallowed about your expiration date. Moses was 80 when God called him to the burning bush. 80. The world would have put him in assisted living, but God was just getting started. For 40 years, Moses thought he was washed up, tending sheep in the desert while his people suffered in Egyptian bondage. 40 years of feeling forgotten, irrelevant, past his prime. But here's what Moses didn't understand during those wilderness decades. God wasn't punishing him with obscurity, He was preparing him for the impossible. Because when Pharaoh finally faced the man who would demand freedom for 2 million slaves, He wasn't facing a young hothead with something to prove. He was facing a weathered warrior who had learned to hear God's voice above the noise of the world. Moses passed the silent test, and so have you. How many nights have you lain in that bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if your life mattered? How many mornings have you looked in the bathroom mirror and seen only wrinkles where the world once saw potential? But what if I told you those weren't signs of decay? What if those were marks of divine preparation? Abraham was 99 years old when God promised him a son. 99. His body was past the point of biological possibility. Sarah's womb had been barren for decades. Every logical voice whispered, "It's too late." But logic doesn't govern God's promises. Genesis 17:17 records Abraham's response. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed. He laughed, not in mockery, but in recognition. He finally understood that God's timeline doesn't follow earthly calendars. And at 100 years old, Abraham held Isaac in his arms. Abraham passed the silent test, and so have you. But maybe you're thinking, that was biblical times. Things were different then. Let me bring this into your living room, into your reality, into the America you know. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in a South African prison cell. 27 years! From age 46 to 73, he watched the world change through 6-inch windows. His youth disappeared behind bars. His prime years evaporated in isolation. Every reasonable voice said, "Your moment has passed." But when those prison gates finally opened, Mandela didn't emerge as a broken old man seeking revenge. He walked out as a statesman who would lead a nation into forgiveness. The very prison that was meant to destroy him had refined him into the leader South Africa desperately needed. Mandela passed the silent test. And so have you. You want to talk about starting over in your golden years? Tyler Perry was homeless at 31, sleeping in his car, writing plays that nobody wanted to see. For 6 years, he watched other people succeed while he struggled to keep the lights on. Friends told him to get a real job. Family questioned his sanity. But Perry understood something most people miss. Your setbacks aren't your disqualifications. They're your credentials. Today, Tyler Perry Studios sits on 330 acres in Atlanta, the largest film production facility in America. The man who once couldn't afford a hotel room now owns an empire worth over $1 billion. Perry passed the silent test. And so have you. Think about Anna, the prophetess in Luke chapter 2. 84 years old, widowed after just 7 years of marriage. She spent the next 77 years in the temple, praying, fasting, waiting. People probably whispered, "Poor old Anna, still hanging around, still believing something's going to happen." But when Mary and Joseph brought baby Jesus to the temple, who was there to recognize the Messiah? Anna. The old woman everyone overlooked became the first evangelist, proclaiming redemption to all who looked for it in Jerusalem. Anna passed the silent test. And so have you. Do you see the pattern? Do you understand what's happening here? Every single one of these individuals faced the same accusation you're facing right now. Your time is up. Your season is over. Step aside. But God doesn't operate retirement homes for the faithful. He operates promotion ceremonies for the persistent. Here's what breaks my heart about your generation. You've been programmed to accept decline when you should be expecting divine appointment. You've been conditioned to count down days instead of counting up victories. You've been taught that gray hair means game over when the Bible says it's a crown of glory. Proverbs 16:31 declares, "Gray hair is a crown of splendor. It is attained in the way of righteousness." You didn't just get old. You got ordained. But I need to ask you something that might sting. How much longer are you going to let the world's definition of your limitations override heaven's declaration of your possibilities? Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job at 23. The news director told her she was unfit for television news. She was too emotional, too involved, too much. But what they called her weakness God called her strength. That emotional connection they criticized became the very gift that would touch millions of hearts across the globe. Oprah passed the silent test, and so have you. The silent test isn't about what happens to you, it's about what happens in you while nothing seems to be happening around you. It's about maintaining faith when the evidence suggests faithlessness. It's about believing in promises when all you see are problems. You've been in that test for years, haven't you? Watching younger people get the opportunities, the recognition, the platforms you prayed for. But what if that waiting wasn't waste? What if it was weight training for your soul? Every rejection built your resilience. Every delay deepened your dependence on God. Every disappointment developed your discernment. You weren't being punished with postponement. You were being prepared for promotion. The question burning in heaven right now isn't whether you're qualified. You already proved that by surviving what should have destroyed you. The question is, are you finally ready to stop seeing yourself through the world's eyes and start seeing yourself through heaven's lens? Because the 31st of August isn't just another day on your calendar. It's the day heaven stops whispering and starts shouting your name. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie you've believed about your future. You've been sitting in that same chair for months, watching the news cycle through disasters, watching your savings account shrink, watching your adult children treat you like you're already dead. But what if I told you that every single moment of that agony was calculated preparation for the 31st of August? You think God forgot about you when your spouse died. You think heaven abandoned you when the doctors delivered that diagnosis. You think the Almighty moved on when your retirement dreams crumbled into dust. But here's the truth that will stop your heart. God wasn't absent during your darkest hours. He was preparing the stage for your greatest moment. This is not another season, beloved. This is permanence. This is divine permanence earned through endurance that would have broken lesser souls into 1,000 pieces. Isaiah 60:1 thunders from eternity. Arise, shine, your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Not will come, not might come, has come. Present tense, active, alive. Your light isn't approaching like a distant sunrise. It's blazing right now, burning through the fog of doubt that's clouded your vision for decades. But why the 31st of August? Why not the 1st of January, when everyone makes resolutions? Why not your birthday, when you blow out candles and make wishes? Because God doesn't operate on human calendars. The 31st of August represents the end of summer, the final harvest before the world prepares for winter. And you, precious saint, you are the final harvest of a generation that refused to quit. Galatians 6:9 declares with divine authority, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." You didn't give up when the bills piled higher than your faith. You didn't surrender when loneliness felt like a physical weight crushing your chest. You didn't quit when every prayer seemed to bounce off a brass heaven. This is not coincidence. This is convergence. Every tear you cried at 2 a.m. was watering seeds you couldn't see. Every time you got dressed when you wanted to stay in bed was an act of warfare against despair. Every meal you ate alone was communion with the God who sees you when no one else does. The enemy thought he was breaking you down, but heaven was building you up. This is not delay. This is divine alignment. For 87 years, Martha from Queens believed she was too old to matter. Her children lived in California. Her husband was buried in Calvary Cemetery, and her arthritis made every step a negotiation with pain. But on the 31st of August last year, she received a phone call that changed everything. A young mother she'd been praying for, someone she'd never met, had been healed of cancer. Martha's midnight intercessions had traveled across the country and stormed heaven's gates. This is not theory. This is testimony. Psalm 102:13 roars with prophetic certainty. You will arise and have compassion on Zion, for it is time to show favor to her. The appointed time has come. The appointed time isn't coming, dear one. The appointed time has come. Heaven's clock just struck the hour of your vindication. But here's what's going to shock you about the 31st of August. You won't feel different when you wake up that morning. Your coffee will taste the same. Your reflection will show the same weathered face. But in the spiritual realm, something irreversible will have shifted. Every door that was locked against you will creak open. Every opportunity that passed you by will circle back with interest. Every person who dismissed you will suddenly need what only you can give. This is not wishful thinking. This is warfare. The same power that raised Jesus from a sealed tomb is about to raise you from the grave of invisibility. The same authority that parted the Red Sea is about to part every obstacle between you and your destiny. The same voice that spoke light into darkness is about to speak purpose into your pain. But I need to ask you something that might cut deeper than you're ready for. How many more the 31st of August TEs are you willing to let slip by? How many more years will you accept the world's verdict that you're finished when heaven is declaring you're just getting started? How many more mornings will you wake up believing the lie that your best days are buried with your youth? Because here's the terrifying truth. This window won't stay open forever. Divine appointments have divine deadlines, and if you miss the 31st of August, if you let doubt talk you out of believing you're chosen, if you convince yourself this message is for someone else, someone younger, someone more qualified, you might spend the rest of your days wondering what could have been. The question burning in eternity right now is this: will you rise to meet your moment, or will you let your moment die with your excuses? You thought the story ended at the final step. No, chosen one, that step was a door, and now we enter the chamber. Listen to me carefully. What you felt in that first wave of recognition, that stirring in your chest when the 31st of August burned itself into your consciousness, that wasn't the destination. That was the invitation. You've been standing at the threshold your entire life, and most people die there, never knowing what lies beyond. But not you. Like Moses stepping beyond the parted sea, you are now walking on ground no one thought existed. The Israelites saw the miracle of the waters splitting, but they had to take the first step onto the muddy ocean floor. They had to trust that what looked impossible was actually inevitable. Exodus 14:13, -14 thunders across the centuries. And Moses said unto the people, Fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Stand still, see the salvation, hold your peace. But here's what they don't tell you in Sunday school about that moment. When Moses lifted his staff and the Red Sea split, it didn't happen instantly. The waters took time to part. The wind howled all night long. For hours, the Israelites watched walls of water climb higher and higher on both sides, held back by nothing but the breath of God. Can you imagine the terror, the doubt, standing there in the darkness, watching liquid mountains suspended in the air, wondering if this was faith or foolishness? That's where you are right now, dear one. The page has turned, the page has turned, the page has turned. You've been living in chapter 1 your whole life, the chapter of preparation, of waiting, of wondering if God remembered your name. But the 31st of August isn't just another verse in that same old story. It's the beginning of Volume 2 of your existence. And Volume 2 has different rules. In Chapter 1, you begged for breakthrough. In Volume 2, breakthrough follows you. In Chapter 1, you chased provision. In Volume 2, provision hunts you down. In Chapter 1, you questioned your worth. In Volume 2, your worth is written in stone by the finger of the Almighty. But let me ask you something that's going to sting. How long have you been living like a refugee in your own life? How many years have you spent apologizing for taking up space, for having needs, for daring to dream at your age? The world convinced you that 70 is the new 60. But only if you stay quiet, stay grateful for scraps, stay invisible while younger generations run the show. They gave you senior discounts but stole your senior authority. They offered you early bird specials but denied you the full banquet of God's blessing. That ends on the 31st of August. You see, dear chosen one, there's something they never told you about the Israelites' journey through the Red Sea. The Bible says in Exodus 14:21 that the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night. All that night. Not 5 minutes, not an hour, all night long. God spent 8 full hours holding back an entire ocean so his people could cross to freedom. 8 hours of sustained supernatural intervention. 8 hours of defying the laws of physics. 8 hours of making the impossible look inevitable. Why am I telling you this? Because what's happening in your life right now isn't a moment, it's a season. God isn't just opening one door for you on the 31st of August. He's holding back every force that has ever worked against you, creating a pathway through obstacles that have blocked your family line for generations. But here's the part that will shake you to your core. The Israelites didn't just walk across on dry ground. The Bible says the ground was dry, not muddy, not damp, completely dry. God didn't just part the waters, he transformed the ocean floor into a highway. That's what he's doing with your impossibilities right now. Your arthritis that makes you feel useless. He's transforming that into a testimony of endurance. Your loneliness that makes you question your value. He's turning that into a reservoir of compassion for others. Your financial struggles that make you feel forgotten. He's converting them into a foundation for unprecedented provision. The page has turned. The page has turned. The page has turned. But turning pages requires courage, doesn't it? Because volume 2 of your life won't look like anything you've experienced before. The people who knew chapter 1 you might not recognize volume 2 you. The voices that once validated your smallness will be confused by your expansion. Are you ready for that discomfort? Are you prepared for the growing pains of divine elevation at your age? Because what I'm about to reveal next will either terrify you or liberate you. The chamber we've just entered, the ground beyond the parted sea, it comes with a price tag that most people your age aren't willing to pay. The question that will determine everything is this. After decades of living in survival mode, do you have the spiritual strength to handle supernatural abundance? Have you wondered why your prayers echoed in silence for decades? Why God seemed to turn his face away when you needed him most? Why, when you were 25, 30, 40 years old, full of fire and faith, heaven went quiet as a tomb? Let me tell you something that will shatter every lie the enemy whispered in your darkest hours. You weren't abandoned. You were being prepared. Gold isn't forged in applause, dear one. It's refined in 1500-degree furnaces. Seeds don't grow in Instagram-worthy sunlight first. They must surrender to the darkness of soil, the crushing weight of earth, the silence of seasons before they can break through into glory. You think those 40 years of marriage that ended in betrayal were wasted? You think those decades of faithful service at the factory, the hospital, the classroom, only to be downsized, forgotten, replaced by someone half your age, you think that was meaningless? You were being shaped in secret. Look at Joseph. Genesis tells us he was 17 when God gave him dreams of greatness. 17. Full of vision, full of purpose, his heart burning with divine destiny. But what happened next? His own brothers threw him in a pit, sold him like cattle. For 13 years, 13 long, silent years, he rotted in slavery and prison, while his dreams seemed to mock him from memory. Can you imagine what Joseph felt at 25, at 30, wondering if God had made a mistake? If those dreams were just the fantasies of an arrogant boy? But here's what Joseph didn't know. Every day in Potiphar's house was teaching him administration. Every night in that dungeon was building his character. Every moment of betrayal was fortifying his faith. Because when Pharaoh finally called for him at age 30, when Egypt needed someone to save the known world from famine, Joseph wasn't just a dreamer anymore. He was a ruler. That's you, chosen one. Every rejection taught you resilience. Every betrayal deepened your discernment. Every closed door redirected you toward your real assignment. Consider Anna the prophetess. Luke chapter 2 tells us she was 84 years old when she finally saw the Christ child. 84. She'd been widowed after just 7 years of marriage, then spent the next 77 years in the temple, praying, fasting, waiting. 77 years. Can you fathom that kind of patience? That kind of faith? People probably whispered, "Poor old Anna," still hanging around the temple, still believing something's going to happen. But when Mary and Joseph walked through those doors carrying baby Jesus, Anna was the first to recognize the Messiah. Not the high priest, not the scholars. The forgotten old woman. Her decades of waiting weren't delay. They were preparation for the most important 30 seconds of her life. David knew this agony. 1 Samuel chapter 16. God sends the prophet Samuel to anoint him king when he's just a shepherd boy. Can you picture that moment? The oil running down his face, the prophet declaring him Israel's next ruler. David's heart must have soared. But then what? Samuel leaves. David goes back to the sheep, and for the next 15 years, he's hunted like a wild animal by King Saul, hiding in caves, running for his life, eating scraps. His mighty men were outlaws and debtors. This was supposed to be God's chosen king? Those caves weren't punishment. They were universities. Every night of terror was teaching David to depend on God alone. Every betrayal was showing him what kind of king he wouldn't become. When he finally touched the throne, he didn't just rule, he established a kingdom that pointed to Christ himself. Hidden, but not forgotten. Silent, but not abandoned. Waiting, but being prepared. You see this pattern everywhere, even today. Viola Davis grew up so poor she ate from dumpsters, homeless and hungry, but those streets taught her survival. That pain gave her access to emotions that now move millions. She didn't just become an actress, she became a voice for the voiceless. Steve Harvey was homeless, sleeping in his car, performing at comedy clubs for gas money, 36 years old and wondering if he'd ever make it. But those nights in that Ford Tempo weren't failure, they were formation. Now he influences millions daily because his struggle was real. What makes you think your story is any different? That business that failed in your 50s, it was teaching you what wouldn't work before God gave you what would. That marriage that crumbled despite your prayers, it was showing you the difference between settling and receiving what you're truly worth. That diagnosis that terrified you, it was proving that your life doesn't depend on medical reports, but on God's decree. You weren't being tortured, you were being trained. But here's what cuts deeper than a two-edged sword. You're sitting there right now, wondering if it's too late. If you've missed your Joseph moment, your Anna encounter, your David coronation, you look at your 70-year-old hands, your 80-year-old reflection, and whisper, "Maybe God's done with me." That's not doubt talking, that's desperation. And desperation is exactly where God does his greatest work. Moses was 80 when the burning bush appeared. 80. When most people are planning their funerals, God was planning Moses' destiny. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Sarah was 90 when Isaac was conceived. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Every wrinkle represents wisdom. Every gray hair crowns you with glory. Every scar proves you're still here because heaven's not finished with you. The silence wasn't abandonment. It was incubation. The waiting wasn't punishment. It was preparation. The hiding wasn't rejection. It was divine protection until the world was ready for what God placed inside you. But now the incubation is complete. The preparation is finished. The protection is being lifted. And the 31st of August, that's your burning bush moment. Dear chosen one, I need you to look back at the wreckage of your life. Look at it honestly. The divorce papers that shattered your 50-year marriage, the pink slip that ended your career at 62, the diagnosis that changed everything, the children who stopped calling, the dreams that died slow, agonizing deaths. You've been trained to see those moments as endings, haven't you? Trained to whisper, "If only I could go back." Trained to believe that broken things stay broken, that what's lost stays lost, that some damage can never be undone. But what if everything you've been taught about your pain is a lie? What if every betrayal, every closed door, every sleepless night crying into your pillow was not God punishing you, but God preparing you for something so magnificent that it required the kind of strength only suffering can forge? The betrayals were not detours. The closed doors were not punishment. The sickness, the losses, the heartbreak, they became fuel. Listen to me carefully. In Judges chapter 14, Samson killed a lion with his bare hands. When he returned to that carcass weeks later, bees had made honey in its bones. What once roared to destroy him had become the source of the sweetest nourishment he'd ever tasted. Your lion is dead, beloved, the thing that almost killed you. It's rotting in the desert of your past. But inside that carcass, something golden is being formed. Romans 8:28 doesn't just suggest, it declares with the authority of heaven itself. And we know that all things work together for good, to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. All things, not some things, not the easy things, all things. That heart attack at 71 that terrified you, it slowed you down enough to hear God's voice again. That financial collapse that humiliated you, it stripped away your pride so you could receive divine provision with grateful hands. That loneliness that felt like death, it drove you so deep into prayer that you found a relationship with the Almighty more intimate than any human connection you'd ever known. What tried to kill you became the oil. What tried to bury you became the seed. What tried to end you became your beginning. But here's where most people miss it. They see the honey, but they refuse to taste it. They acknowledge God's faithfulness in hindsight, but they won't step into the power that their pain has purchased. Look at Oprah Winfrey, born into poverty so crushing that she wore dresses made from potato sacks, sexually abused by family members, told she was worthless, unlovable, destined for nothing. But every violation, every rejection, every moment of shame was building something inside her that would eventually touch millions of souls. Her pain became her platform. Her wounds became her wisdom. Her brokenness became her bridge to healing others. Consider Nelson Mandela, 27 years in a prison cell, 27 years. His body confined, his dreams deferred, his youth stolen. But in that cell, something eternal was being forged. Not bitterness, though he had every right to it. Not hatred, though the world would have understood. Instead, a supernatural capacity for forgiveness that would reshape an entire nation. The prison didn't break him. It built him into the kind of man who could hold the weight of reconciliation without cracking under its pressure. Think about Tyler Perry. Homeless at 16, sleeping in his car, mocked by critics, rejected by Hollywood. But every night in that car, every day of ridicule, every door slammed in his face was constructing the vision that would eventually create a media empire worth over $1 billion. His homelessness became his hustle. His rejection became his resilience. His pain became his profit. What tried to kill them became the oil. What tried to bury them became the seed. What tried to end them became their beginning. But why am I telling you this? Because somewhere in your 70, 80, 90 years of life, you've accumulated enough honey to feed a generation. You've survived enough lions to know that roaring doesn't equal victory. You've walked through enough fire to understand that what doesn't burn you transforms you. Yet you're still living like a victim instead of the victor you've already become. Every tear you've cried has been stored in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you've whispered has been recorded in eternal archives. Every time you got back up when staying down would have been easier. You were earning compound interest on a blessing that's about to explode over your life. The enemy thought he was destroying you with that bankruptcy. God was teaching you that your security doesn't come from stocks and bonds, it comes from the one who owns every bank in the world. The devil thought he was isolating you when your friends abandoned you. But God was positioning you for relationships so divinely orchestrated that they'll make your old friendships look like mere acquaintanceships. Hell thought it was silencing you when your voice cracked with age and pain. But heaven was seasoning your words with authority that can only come from speaking truth while bleeding. What tried to kill you became the oil. What tried to bury you became the seed. What tried to end you became your beginning. But here's the question that will determine whether the 31st of August becomes your coronation or just another date you let slip by. Are you ready to stop apologizing for your scars and start wearing them as credentials? Because, chosen one, the honey is ready to harvest, but only if you're brave enough to reach into the bones of what once tried to devour you. Listen carefully, chosen one. Something extraordinary just happened in the invisible realm while you were sitting there questioning whether your life still matters. Heaven has sent out a broadcast, a frequency so pure, so powerful, that it cannot be revoked, cannot be jammed, cannot be silenced by any force on earth or beneath it. Your name is reverberating across the spiritual airwaves right now, not whispered, not mentioned, reverberating. Like thunder rolling across mountain peaks, your identity is being announced in places where angels gather, where principalities tremble, where the very throne room of God acknowledges what's about to unfold in your life. But here's what's going to shock you to your core. This isn't happening because you finally got your act together. This isn't heaven rewarding your perfect behavior or your flawless faith. This cosmic signal went out because you survived. You endured. You didn't quit when quitting would have been easier than breathing. Think of the most powerful radio tower you've ever seen, those massive steel structures stretching 2,000 feet into the sky, broadcasting signals that can reach clear across multiple states. Your soul just went live on a frequency that spans eternity itself. Every prayer you whispered at 3 a.m. thinking nobody was listening, they've been recorded, amplified, and are now being broadcast back to you as divine answers. The signal has been released. The signal has been released. The signal has been released. You feel that weight in your chest. That's not anxiety about aging. That's not worry about tomorrow's bills or next week's doctor's appointment. That weight is the gravitational pull of destiny pressing down on your spirit because heaven's broadcast tower is locked onto your coordinates. You can't escape it. You can't outrun it. You can't hide from what God has already announced over your life. Scripture declares in Revelation 3:8, "See, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it." Did you catch that? This isn't a future promise. This is present tense reality. The door isn't opening. The door is open. Right now, this moment, as these words penetrate your heart. But let me ask you something that might cut deep into your soul. How many years have you spent believing you missed your chance? How many nights have you laid awake wondering if your season expired with your youth? How many times have you looked at younger people receiving opportunities and thought, God must have forgotten about me? That's not just doubt talking. That's demonic deception designed to keep you from recognizing the sound of your own name being called from the eternal broadcast station. Here's the stunning truth they don't want you to know. Every closed door, every rejection letter, every time someone half your age got promoted while you stayed invisible, that wasn't God ignoring you. That was heaven protecting the frequency until the appointed time. Because what's about to be released through you is so powerful, so anointed, so strategically important to the kingdom that premature exposure would have diluted its impact. You've been living under spiritual radio silence, thinking the connection was dead. But silence isn't absence. Silence is preparation. The same way NASA maintains radio silence during the most critical moments of a space mission, heaven has kept your channel clear of interference, while the most important transmission of your lifetime was being prepared. The signal has been released. The signal has been released. The signal has been released. Do you understand what this means for your remaining years? This means every morning you wake up from now on, you're waking up to a day that heaven has already blessed before sunrise. Every conversation you have carries frequencies of favor that can't be earned or faked. Every step you take lands on ground that the Almighty has already prepared for your arrival. But here's where it gets dangerous for the forces of darkness. When heaven's signal locks onto a chosen vessel, it doesn't just affect that person, it affects everyone in their radius. Your children who stopped calling regularly will suddenly feel compelled to reach out. Your neighbors who barely nodded before will start seeking your wisdom. The very people who overlooked you for decades will begin gravitating toward your presence because they'll sense something they can't name but can't resist. You think you've been forgotten, you've been positioned, you think you've been sidelined, you've been stationed. Like a radio tower standing silent on a hill for months while engineers calibrate the equipment, you've been receiving upgrades, adjustments, and installations that you couldn't even feel happening. And now heaven is saying, broadcasting begins. Now, the signal carries more than just blessing. It carries assignment. It carries authority. It carries the accumulated prayers of every ancestor who begged God to break through in their bloodline. You're not just receiving favor. You're inheriting the spiritual bank account of generations who deposited prayers but never lived to see the withdrawal. Can you handle what's coming? Because this cosmic signal doesn't discriminate by age, education, or social status. When heaven broadcasts over your life, cancer cells have to listen, financial lack has to respond, family curses have to break, depression has to lift. Why? Because the frequency of the Almighty overrides every other signal trying to program your reality. The signal has been released. The signal has been released. The signal has been released. But the most shocking part is this: you don't get to turn it off. There's no unsubscribe button for divine destiny. There's no mute switch for heavenly assignments. Once the signal locks onto your spirit, it transforms everything it touches. Your voice carries new authority. Your presence shifts atmospheres. Even your silence becomes pregnant with power. So here's the question that will determine your destiny. Are you ready to receive the transmission that's already traveling toward you at the speed of light? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. For decades you've been told to dim your light, to speak softer, to take up less space, to fade gracefully into the background, because the world has no room for elderly voices, aged dreams, or senior saints who still believe in miracles. But what if everything they told you about getting older was a demonic lie designed to steal your greatest season? Your glow is not for decoration, it is a divine disruption. Your shine is not aesthetic, it is prophetic artillery. The radiance breaking through your weathered skin, the authority flowing from your silver tongue, the fire burning in your tired eyes, none of this is ornamental. This is warfare wrapped in wrinkles. Do you realize what you carry in those trembling hands? Do you understand the weapon concealed in your grandmother's smile, your grandfather's weathered prayers? You think the enemy attacked your health, your finances, your family for 70 years because you were weak. He came after you because he saw what was coming on the 31st of August. He saw the arsenal heaven was building in your aged frame. Your light is not decoration. Your light is not decoration. Your light is not decoration. Think about Harriet Tubman, barely 5 feet tall, illiterate, suffering from seizures. The world saw a broken slave woman. But heaven saw a general carrying a sword of light that would cut through the darkness of slavery. Her glow didn't illuminate parlor rooms for tea parties. It blazed trails through midnight forests, leading 300 souls from bondage to freedom. Every step she took was a battle cry. Every breath was a declaration of war against oppression. Rosa Parks sat in that bus seat on the 1st of December, 1955. 42 years old, working as a seamstress, tired from a long day. Nobody expected revolution from her quiet refusal. But her light wasn't about comfort. It was about confrontation. One woman's spine of steel ignited a movement that brought an entire system of hate to its knees. What made these women dangerous? They understood their light was a sword, not a candle. Isaiah 60:1-3 thunders across centuries directly to you. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples, but the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. Nations will come to your light. Not maybe, not if you're lucky. They will come, because when God ignites a senior saint who's been refined in the furnace of decades, that light cuts through darkness like a blade through butter. But here's what terrifies hell about your approaching activation. You're not carrying teenage enthusiasm that burns bright and dies fast. You're not wielding middle-aged ambition that compromises for comfort. You're carrying atomic spiritual energy that's been compressed under pressure for 8-9 decades. When that explodes on the 31st of August, the shockwaves will be felt in boardrooms, bedrooms, and broken homes across America. Your children who stopped calling will suddenly remember your number. Your church that put you in the back row will wonder why their prayers feel empty without your voice. Your community that ignored your wisdom will find themselves desperately seeking your counsel. Why? Because your light is not decoration. Your light is a weapon of mass construction, rebuilding what the enemy spent decades trying to destroy. Do you feel that trembling in your spirit right now? That's not fear. That's anticipation. That's your inner warrior recognizing the call to arms. You've been recruited into heaven's special forces, the Silver Squad, the seasoned saints, the aged avengers, who carry light so pure it exposes every counterfeit, every compromise, every comfortable lie this generation has swallowed. But I need to ask you something that might sting. Are you ready to stop being polite and start being powerful? Are you prepared to let your light blind the darkness, even if it makes people squirm? Because comfortable Christianity never freed a slave, never stopped a war, never healed a nation. The light breaking over your life on the 31st of August won't ask permission to shine. It won't apologize for disrupting fake peace. It won't dim itself to accommodate spiritual cowards who prefer shadows to solutions. Your presence will become prophecy. Your words will carry the weight of decades spent wrestling with God and winning. Your prayers will move mountains because they'll be backed by the authority of someone who's seen heaven show up when hell showed out. This is why your body aches with anticipation. This is why sleep eludes you as the date approaches. This is why ordinary conversations feel meaningless. Your spirit knows what's coming. Your soul recognizes the sound of divine deployment. The question burning in heaven's war room is simple. Will you take up your sword of light, or will you keep polishing it in secret, hoping someone younger, stronger, more qualified will fight the battles you were born to win? Because the 31st of August isn't asking if you feel ready. It's declaring that ready or not, your light is about to become the weapon that changes everything. Chosen one. As we reach the end of this divine encounter, let me leave you with 3 unshakable truths that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, the 31st of August is not just another date, it is your divine appointment with destiny. The stirring in your spirit, the restlessness in your bones, the knowing that something magnificent is approaching. Trust it. Your season of invisibility is ending. Your time of holy visibility has begun. Second, your age is not your limitation, it is your qualification. Every wrinkle tells a story of God's faithfulness. Every gray hair is a crown of wisdom earned through fire. Every battle you've survived has built the spiritual muscle you need for what's coming. You are not too old, you are perfectly seasoned. Third, your light is not decoration, it is a weapon. The glow breaking over your life will cut through darkness, expose deception, and awaken souls who have been asleep too long. You were not refined for retirement. You were forged for revolution. But hear me clearly, beloved, you are not walking this path alone. The same God who has carried you through 70, 80, 90 years of valleys and victories is still working on your behalf. He has not brought you this far to abandon you now. Romans 8:31 reminds us, if God is for us, who can be against us? That promise has no expiration date, and beyond God's unwavering presence, you have a community right here, thousands of fellow chosen ones who understand your journey because they're walking it too. We see you, we celebrate you, we stand ready to pray with you, rejoice with you, and remind you that your story matters. I want you to share this message with someone who needs to hear it. In your comments below, tell us how God is moving in your life. Ask for prayer if you need it. Encourage someone who's struggling. Let this community become the family that reminds you daily, you are chosen, you are loved, and you are never, ever alone. Thank you for staying with me through this entire message. Your faithfulness to listen, to receive, to believe, speaks volumes about the heart God has given you. If this word has stirred something deep in your spirit, please subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell, because your breakthrough journey is just beginning, and there's so much more God wants to reveal to you. Now, before I release you into your destiny, let me place my hand on your shoulder through these words and pray over your life with the authority of someone who has witnessed God's faithfulness for decades. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has heard this message tonight. You see them sitting there, some in wheelchairs, some with trembling hands, some with hearts heavy from loss. But Lord, you also see what we see: warriors who refuse to quit, saints who chose faith over fear, chosen ones who carried your light through the darkest seasons. Father, I pray that you would breathe fresh wind into their weary bones. Where there is pain, bring healing. Where there is loneliness, send divine connections. Where there is confusion, grant crystal clarity about their calling. Let them feel your presence so powerfully right now that every doubt, every fear, every whisper of "it's too late" dies in your overwhelming love. God, open doors that no man can shut. Provide resources they haven't even thought to ask for. Restore relationships that seemed beyond repair. Give them dreams and visions that will guide their steps. Surround them with people who see their value, honor their wisdom, and celebrate their light. Most of all, Lord, let them wake up tomorrow morning knowing beyond any doubt that they are loved, they are chosen, they are equipped, and their greatest chapter is still being written. Let the 31st of August mark not just another day, but the beginning of the most impactful season of their lives. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer with faith, hope, and expectant joy. Amen. Go now, chosen one. Your light is a weapon, and the world needs what you carry. The clock has struck midnight on your season of hiding. Dawn is breaking, and you are the sunrise this generation has been waiting for. Your final step isn't coming, it's here. And everything changes now.